Okay, it's time for guitar duel number 4. And this one is going to feature George Lynch versus Alex Lifeson. And I want to point out again that these are random pairings. Okay, first one I think that you need to point out for Lynch is his phrasing. He has a very interesting way of putting together a solo, a melodic line, and he also has an interesting way of putting together a chord progression when he's writing songs. I know he didn't write all the songs in Dokken, and they collaborated with Don Dokken, but there are certain specific riffs that you can tell are George Lynch, and he almost has a pop sensibility for melody, but he shreds in a really neoclassical and flashy. So what you have is someone who's looking for as tasteful a phrasing as you can find, but at the same time sort of trying to show off, and I think that's a pretty good combination. Number 2, I think that George Lynch has a really good guitar tone. I know I've heard other people say exactly the opposite, and I've seen some videos of the studio footage of Lynch where, yeah, it's questionable, but on the recorded albums, I've always really liked his tone, and I like the way that he mixes his overdubbed guitars. So I think he was a pretty good studio player. And then number 3, I would say he, of all of the post Eddie Van Halen heavy metal type guitar players, did the best job of not sounding like Eddie. And one of the ways that he did this, of course, is by playing almost like the woman tone, like an Eric Clapton approach to tone. I know that Eddie has the brown sound and all that, but their tones aren't the same. And so I think that you got to give Lynch credit for being in a 80s metal band, pop metal, that didn't sound like Ed. Alright, so now let's move on to Alex Lifeson. The first thing I would point out with Alex Lifeson is his classical guitar influence. Right from the very beginning of Rush, the acoustic guitar playing, although I know on Fly By Night a lot of that was written by Geddy, and on Caress of Steel. Around the time you get to 2112 and Farewell to Kings, you can really hear the classical guitar influence coming out. And while guitarists like Steve Howe and even Ritchie Blackmore to some extent were incorporating classical influences, and even Page and some very limited extent, I think Alex had a real ear for how to put the classical guitar and classical guitar approach into a rock format. So that would be number 1. Number 2, I would say that because he is in a trio, Alex deserves a whole lot of credit for his rhythm guitar playing that he rarely gets. He is the only guitarist in Rush. Rush is a trio. They have very complicated music. They have some of their older stuff is the arrangements are challenging, and Alex isn't just out there playing bar chords and pentatonic scales. He's out there doing a full range of guitar phrasings, guitar voices, guitar styles, everything from jazz to blues to classical to folk, and of course, good old heavy straight ahead rock. And so the third thing that I would mention for Alex is his touch. Alex has a beautiful touch on the guitar, and it translates both into his electric guitar playing and his acoustic guitar playing. You get the feeling that he would have been a really good jazz guitarist if that's what he had chosen to do. He has a light but very sure touch, which is exactly what you want as a guitar player. I think the only downside to that is you can play it almost so well that your artistry goes unnoticed. Anyway, those are my 3 things for each of the guitarists, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. So if you have a thought on this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please comment in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.